Trail Tales this week, and we've got Gregory joining us. Hi, Lauren.
Hello, how you doing?
Yeah, good, thank you. Thanks for joining us on your Saturday night during
It's
lockdown.
like the most exciting Saturday night I've had for like God knows how long.
It's the way it goes. The new going out, staying in, and
Yes, exactly.
doing a live Q&A. No, it's awesome to have you here. Yeah, we just want to talk about your running and what you do. So, yeah, just I've in the kind of adverts for this, I've given people a bit of an overview of what you do. But yeah, tell us a bit about your background and what you do.
I'm very normal. I'm married and got two children. We live in sort of like South Warwickshire, right in the Midlands.
Yeah.
I'm so by day I'm a personal trainer. I've been doing that for a long time now, so like 20 years, 21 years this year actually. So I'm a freelance personal trainer, so I go in and help people reach their goals. So goal setting is like a really, really big thing of what I do. And then I just also love trail running. So, I mean, running in general I love. I've not always done trail running. It's probably something that came about maybe, I don't know, 7 or 8 years ago. And I just love it now. But I've also got a women's running group based in Leamington called Run Like a Girl that I set up in 2015. Initially just as something to do on a Tuesday night. It was like my only night out of the week that I got to go out because my son was quite young. And actually no, I had my daughter actually at that point, so it's 2015, so she would have been 2 years old at that point. And it just grew, it like grew and grew really quickly. So that's become like quite a significant part of what I do now is manage the group and get the ladies out running when we can. Obviously at the moment, unfortunately, we're
Yeah.
unable to. Rona, but
Tricky.
yeah, when we're out of lockdown, we'll be able to meet again.
How many members have you got in that group now?
So the Facebook group's got like 2,500 members on it, but actual kind of active members who come and run with this is probably more like 25, 30 during coronavirus, like since we've been able to go back. Obviously we've had to limit numbers and work to the ratio set by UK Athletics. But ordinarily, in the past, we've had up to like 250 people turn up on a Tuesday night and run with us. So sort of back in the day when it first started, it became very successful very quickly. We had huge numbers.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, and then it kind of dropped a little bit, probably down to about 40 or 50, and then then we sort of ended up with this pandemic, so it's obviously affected things a little bit, but. When we are able to run, like between kind of September and was it November? When did we go into the second lockdown?
November.
The second lockdown actually. that we've been in. Yeah, so during that time anyway, between sort of September and November, we had probably about 30. So,
Oh, that's cool. Well,
yeah, they're a good bunch of girls.
What was the motivation for setting that up?
So I've ran since I was probably, I don't know, about 19 or so, 19, 20 years old. I mean, I ran in school, but I didn't enjoy it, and I was really rubbish at it as well.
Yeah.
I remember going out with PE. We used to have a PE teacher called Mrs. Hall, and I remember she'd like run us around town, and I remember literally being left at the back on my own, just thinking like, this is how I'm going to die today. Like I literally can't breathe, And so, anyway, sort of skipping ahead to 2015, I'd had both my children. So my son would have been about 5 years old by then. My daughter was a couple of years old. So at that point, running had taken like a different meaning for me. So it was less about fitness and burning calories and staying in shape and more about the headspace that came with it and just having that breakaway. As much as I absolutely adore being a mother. And I have one child literally creeping in on the corner of the screen at the moment. My Emma. I knew she'd make an appearance at some point.
Brilliant.
I can't talk right now. I can talk static pace. Sorry. What was my train of thought? So it just became something that was a bit more important to me and important to like my mental health and having that independence away from being a mother and a wife and constantly in demand,
Yeah.
and I wanted to offer that. I realised how important that was for all of us to have that time to ourselves, and I wanted to offer that um, to other women. I felt more comfortable with women because at that point I was very much still quite new to like this newfound running, if that makes sense. And
Yeah.
so kind of something also it was a lot about kind of being a mother and having that time to yourself. So I mean the group's not strictly for mums at all. It's called Run Like a Girl, so it's a women's group. It doesn't matter if you're a man or not. But so that was kind of my motivation to set it up, and I didn't really know what to expect. I literally had no booking system or anything. I just went on there's a mum's forum, Facebook forum called Mum Knows Best for Warwickshire, and I went on there one evening and sort of said if I set up a beginners running group, would anyone be interested? And I remember putting my phone away for the evening and then picking it up just before I went to bed. Well, I'm blurry again. And wine. And my phone was literally like it was like lit up with notifications, literally about sort of 20, 30 people saying, yeah, I'd be up for that. So I went ahead and set it up, and had 23 turn up on the first night, which I was
cool.
really pleased with, because I didn't really know what to expect. So I kind of thought maybe if I got 10, that I'd be really pleased with.
Yeah.
And then the following week, 30 turns up, and then I took them through. So it was a beginner's course, very much based on like the Couch to 5K.
Yeah.
So I kind of just took them through that process, and then 8 weeks later, they all kind of graduated and finished that course. And then they sort of said, well, what now? And I was like, well, we can carry on running together. I'm happy to kind of take you on to the next level, but I also now want to open up the same offering again to a new intake of beginners. And I remember, so this was like the September of 2015. Again, I had no booking system. It was literally all done by word of mouth. There was no payments taking, nothing like that.
Yeah.
I remember driving through the bottom of Leamington where we meet and seeing like this huge crowd. And I remember thinking like, God, what's going on? Is it some sort of protest or what's happening? And when I parked up and arrived, I realised they were all in running gear.
Wow.
There was 90 women turned up. 30 of which were the original beginners, sort of turning up for like their improvers session, and then 60 new runners. And I was like, oh my goodness. I very quickly realised that we needed to get more people on board. So actually my friend Becky at the time was already on board with it. She sort of said, I'll come and run with the group and run at the back.
Yeah.
And she said, I'm happy to kind of bring in the rear, make sure no one's left behind. And that was a really good USP, was that, you know, people felt comfortable joining because they knew that they wouldn't just be left behind at the back to make their way, you know, back to the park.
Yeah, it's just like an inclusive group.
Yeah, it's very much that, and it's all shapes and sizes, all ages, all various abilities. You know, we try and cater for most.
Yeah.
I say most only as much as that there's only so far I can take them. So we've had women who've come as a beginner and they've gone on to like a really high level, and I've sort of said like, this is as far as I can take you. It's time to basically get a decent coach.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
And is that mainly road running, or do you do a mixture of sort of road and trail?
Yeah, it is all roads pretty
Is it?
much. But so Leamington is surrounded by lots of nice countryside, but you need to run a couple of miles until you get out, and because we still cater for very mixed abilities, sometimes that couple of miles is the majority of that person's run.
Yeah.
So we do occasionally, like in the summer, I'll put on a couple of trail runs. It's so nice in the evening, obviously, to get on it on a sort of a nice sunny evening. But I also do ones myself in my own time, sort of separate to Run Like a Girl, but obviously very inclusive Run Like a Girl. Saturdays where we'll kind of head out, because where I live is all in the countryside, and we've got Burton Dasset Hills nearby, so
nice.
I can sort of take them out, but once again, you know, we can't do it at the moment.
No. Oh, that's awesome. And so I'm intrigued as to what got you into trail running specifically.
Ironically, it was my husband, and he doesn't even run. So he's actually more of a cyclist. He's dabbled in a bit of running, sort of here and there, but there was just one day we'd gone for a road run up to Burton Dasset Hills.
Yeah.
And he said, "Oh, I'll show you this route that I come down on my bike sometimes, which is all off-road." And it was probably about 1.5 miles just down across these fields, like down back to sort of where we lived. And I was like, and I just remember sort of thinking like, why have I not done this before? Like, it just literally didn't feel like running because I was so busy looking around me and just enjoying the scenery and concentrating on what my feet were doing, because obviously road running is so different to trail running, particularly trail running in road shoes.
Yeah.
So it was quite sort of slippery on the foot. And I just immediately, I was like, this is what I meant to do. Like, this is my discipline in running, is trail.
And is that what you stick to now, primarily in your own running? And
I do mix it up a bit, so I tend to keep trails for the weekends. I'll occasionally try and get like a midweek trail run in.
Yeah.
A lot of my midweek runs do tend to be more on road, just because quite often I'm up against the clock, and so if I need to just kind of get miles in or working to a plan.
Yeah.
Sometimes just to head out on the road to kind of get it done. But I mean, again, because of where we live, it's really scenic, so actually I don't really mind road running around here. I don't like road running so much in towns.
No.
Just because there's quite a lot going on. I just quite like the peace and tranquility of being out six.
Yeah, I think if it's definitely if it's a bit more rural, road running is quite nice. It's when you're having to stop at junctions every minute or two and dodge
through people.
I know.
Yeah, exactly. So it's nice running. I don't mind a road run around here, but I would always choose trail running when I could.
That's awesome. And so what we'll go into some of your sort of like the races that you do and things like that. What kind of encouraged you to start pushing yourself further and further in terms of distance? We'll speak about some specific events shortly, but what kind of made you sort of think about endurance running?
So I did park run for years. That's all. So I'd run a little bit, maybe twice during the week, and then I'd never miss a park run.
Yeah.
Then I'd occasionally do the odd 10k, and that was a really facing like a 10k event was something I always took really, really seriously. And then it was a friend actually talked me into doing the Warwick Half Marathon.
Right.
I remember it was a New Year's Eve years ago. I can't remember what year it was now. Probably around about 2014 maybe. So she took me to do the Warwick Half Marathon on New Year's Eve because I'd had a few drinks and she took advantage of me and made me sign up there and then. So I woke up on New Year's Day to this email confirmation I'd signed up to a half marathon. I was like, oh God.
I think this happens to a lot of people with doing like a marathon, an ultra, a half. There's generally some drunken night beforehand, I think.
I've had the amount of times I've woken up to an email confirmation. I'm like, God, this is the worst thing ever. I woke up to a 100-mile email confirmation once.
No.
That's how I ended up doing 100 miles. And the CCC. So anyway, I decided to do our park run route a couple of times to see how that felt.
Yeah.
Like 10k, and I was like, oh, I've done 10k before, so I'm going to go again. Did the 15, and then I did a fourth lap, and I was like, I feel okay. I actually feel okay, and I was really proud of myself. I remember finishing, calling my husband, just going. He was like, "Did you do like 3 laps?" I was like, "No, I did 4 laps," and I was really, really pleased with myself.
Yeah.
And so I did the Warwick Half Marathon, and again, I trained really hard for it because I'm very sort of all or nothing, I sort of tend to go into like a tunnel vision when I've got my sights on something, and so I kind of lived and breathed half marathon training for 3 months and completed that and did it in at a time that I was really pleased with, and then I signed up to it. So then I signed up to the Great North Run. Place on that. Did that later that year, squeezed in one at Blenheim as well in between. Just after actually. So then like half marathon was like the thing that I really enjoyed doing, but like marathon was just like another level. Like I couldn't, and everyone kept saying to me, right, next is the marathon, isn't it? Right, because you've done the 5, done the 10, you've gone half. It's the natural progression, and I was
Yeah.
like, no, I literally can't do a marathon. And then what happened is so in 2015, the same year that I set up Run Like a Girl, much earlier in the year, I don't know if you've heard of a charity course. I don't know my camera.
I don't know. It's quite funky though.
I don't know if it's just like each sip of wine is kicking in each time.
Yeah, possibly.
So there's a charity in America called I Run For, and it was set up a while ago, and basically it's a really lovely charity where runners of any level are matched with either sort of children or young adults that have got difficulties in one way or another, and that can be learning difficulties. It can be like a life-changing or life-threatening condition or disease. And the idea is that the runner just kind of really embraces their body, as they're called, and just tries to help them to break away from the everyday life of all the medical procedures they're undergoing, all the special treatment that they need, and just kind of make them feel really special. So things like you might send like your medals out to them, like your race medals or your race shirts, or just kind of stay in touch with them. So I've been on the waiting list for 6 months for this charity, and eventually in January I got an email to say I'd been matched with a boy called Braden who lives in Cincinnati. Braden at the time was 14 years old. God, that's so long, isn't it? And he was born with cerebral palsy, so he was premature. He was like 11 weeks premature.
Right.
He was born weighing 2 pounds.
Wow.
And had one of the most severe sort of degrees of cerebral palsy. He was basically 100% dependent on his mum, who happened to be a single mum as well. So there she was, basically trying to look after Braden on her own and make ends meet. And one of the things she was in desperate need of was a van, and like a wheelchair van, because she was still having to live in and out of her regular car, which was obviously sort of getting increasingly more difficult as he grew older. So I decided to do a bit of fundraising, which isn't part of what you sign up for when you sign up for the charity, but it was just something that I wanted to help out with.
Yeah.
I could see she was really struggling. So a friend of mine at the time said, look, I love this whole concept of what's going on with you and Braden. It's such a lovely charity. I want to help, but I feel like if you want to raise, we were talking about like the wheelchair van was something like $25,000, and I think they'd raised about $4,000.
Right.
I hadn't set a target, but I thought it'd be nice to get like $1,000 or $2,000. And so he said, but you've got to go big. Like, you're going to have to go big on your fundraising to raise that money. And he said, let's do an ultra marathon. I'll do it with you. And I didn't even know what an ultra marathon was. I had to Google it. I remember Googling it and literally just replying to Andy and just kind of going, no.
Really?
Talking about doing Race to Stones.
Yeah.
I'm doing over 2 days, so it's 100k, so it's like 31 miles, then you camp over, set off again the next morning, and I was like, that's ridiculous. Anyway, he talked me into it, we trained for it, we did it, we raised, I think, £3,500 in the end.
Wow.
And then about 6 months later, they bought the van. So the Race to Stones was like my first experience of ultramarathon training, and obviously the event itself. And it was just such a huge journey for me, because I was doing it with, raising, you had like 2 young children, as I say, like they were 3 and 5 at the time. And, still working as well. So it was a really big deal, and it really it became like the main focus in my life.
Yeah.
And being able to complete it was just like such a huge sense of achievement, and I was so proud of myself, and so thankful to the support that I had from family and friends and everyone who donated. And it was honestly a life-changing experience in so many ways. And all along, I was like, I'm just going to do this one event, and then that's going to be it. And that's what I promised my husband as well, because I'm preparing for training runs. like we'd do like 20, 22 miles. I'd come home and I was good for nothing for like the rest of the day.
Yeah.
So bless him, you know, my husband's really good, he's really hands-on, but like any parent, there's a certain limit where you just go, right, it's your turn now. I wasn't kind of stepping up, so I sort of said to him, like, this is it, I'm just going to do race to stones, and then we're done. But of course that wasn't the case. I then got a taste for it.
Kept going further and further.
But yeah, so that's where it kind of stemmed from. So
that's really cool, and that you're able to kind of get involved in the charity aspect of it as well. I think it's tricky actually as you do more and more of these things. I feel it becomes harder to kind of ask people to sponsor you, or
there's so many great causes out there, and everyone's wanting to raise money for charity.
Yeah.
Well, it's almost quite competitive to try and get sponsorships.
Yeah. That sounds really good. And how did that race go? The first one.
It was so I wrote a blog on it actually. I remember like the first day was okay. So I was actually running it with my friend Andy, who suggested it, and then we'd also recruited another friend, Brian. So
Yeah.
it was me and the two guys, and we did the whole thing together. And we had a great laugh. I remember it was a really lovely, hot, sunny weekend. I was really kind of caught up in the atmosphere of it all. I'd never really experienced anything, because I'm sure you'll agree that ultramarathons even have their own like type of atmosphere. And great camaraderie, and there's a real sort of sense of like getting through together. It's quite a sociable event as well, particularly. I mean, actually, to be fair, Tom, you're always at the front, so you won't get this. But us mere mortals who are like mid-pack, we like, you can sort of get that chat going a bit more. And,
yeah.
So yeah, I just loved it. So day one was great. Didn't sleep at all. Like it was like the night. It was just like the worst night's sleep. I remember waking up feeling like I'd gone 12 rounds with Tyson, and just thinking like how am I going to do this? Like, we've still got 31 miles to go, and like there's so much pressure on now because I've publicised this whole event, and I've got like Braden's literally, like his family are sending messages saying we're watching, we're tracking you, we're rooting for you, and I was like, oh my god, I literally can't get out of my bed.
No.
So day two was a bit miserable, and the weather had changed a bit. It later was like torrential, like for the last 8 miles.
Really?
Torrential rain, yeah. So it was really tough actually. It really was kind of one of those things where I really, really wanted to just quit, if I'm honest. I remember putting a call into my mum and just basically crying and going, I can't do it. I'm so tired. My feet are absolutely killing me. Everything hurts.
Yeah.
So tired. She gave me a really good pep talk, as mums tend to, and kind of pulled up my big girl pants and reminded myself that I signed up for it. No one had made me do it, so
I know.
And yeah, so I was pleased. I was really pleased to finish it, and it was really emotional. Like the three of us crossed together.
Yeah.
And we had sort of that a really good kind of a cry at the end, like happy tears, but it was just such a journey, both physically and mentally, emotionally. I sort of came out feeling like I'd experienced things that I don't think I would have experienced in other situations I can think of.
Yeah.
And I felt like I'd grown in the space of 2 days. I'd grown in so many ways, and that's what I wanted more of. It was that thing of like, ooh, what have I really applied myself to this? What if I really took this seriously and this became a thing that I do? Like, what other experiences can I have from this sport?
Definitely. I think ultra running especially has that effect on you.
Yeah, something about it.
Because, like, I mean, I've done Race to the Stones, but I did it in one day, in the one go, and I've got the most respect for people that can do it in two and kind of try and get some sleep and then go again the next day. Like, I would much rather just keep going, personally.
So I went back 2 years later and did it in one go.
Did you?
It's much better.
Yeah. I mean, I can't imagine getting my legs going again the next morning. But yeah, I mean, it's just everything that goes into it, and I think also quite often it's all that training, all that time that's paying. It gets paid off, and I think a lot of that is the emotions that come into it as well. So
I
Um,
think I really believe like as adults we don't give ourselves enough praise and reward. Particularly I think more so as parents as well. Um, you know, we're all about praising our children and building them up and stuff, but you know, sometimes it's quite nice to give ourselves a pat on the back and go, actually, bloody well done. Like
yeah,
against the odds, I did that myself, and it's that sense of achievement
yeah.
is
I think that
so.
possibly does get overlooked. And I was going to say, like, you know, there is a lot of time and effort goes into these things, and you're obviously working full time, doing classes as a personal trainer. You're running your running group as well. You're training. You're a mum to two kids. Like, how do you fit everything in?
Um,
Does it take a bit of effort?
like when you put it like that, I do think that's quite a lot actually, isn't it?
Yeah, and I'm sure you do a lot of other things as well.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. But I don't feel any different to anyone else. I don't think I
No.
have it any harder than anyone else. I think there's so many parents out there who are working and training and managing other hobbies and things. I am probably quite an extreme person. I've always said I've got quite, like I said earlier, sort of all or nothing. So
Yeah.
I struggle to just kind of relax and not do much, but that's my downfall as well. So I am a bit prone to injury because I'm so physical in my job, and then obviously the training that I do is, quite, you can be out for hours at a time.
Yeah.
So the load that I put on my body sometimes isn't very well balanced with enough downtime and enough recovery time. I could definitely do better at sort of my body care. Yeah, I don't know. I like being busy. I must admit, sometimes it does get really overwhelming, and every now and again I just back off a little bit. Like I was saying to you earlier before we started, that this week's been difficult with some personal
Yeah.
stuff going on, so I've just backed off the miles a bit and just taken each day, a bit more easy. And I feel good for it actually. I went out for a run early, and although it was biblical out there, it was also my legs felt good, my body felt strong, so I think that downtime's really important.
It does. Yeah, it massively helps, and I think particularly like runners that are into ultra marathons. I'm guilty of it. Is you get carried away, and it's very easy when you've got your fitness and you want to run more miles because that's the sort of thing that we do, and you've got all these beautiful trails. You just want to be out on them, as much
Well,
as you
that's
can.
it, isn't it? Yeah, that's exactly it. It's not about the fitness or necessarily the miles that you're doing. It's just about being out there enjoying it. And as you know, you can be out there before you know it, like 3 or 4 hours have passed. It's lovely out here.
Yeah, I know. But yeah, there's also another life that you have to get back
Yeah,
to as well.
adulting.
Yeah. So yeah, race wise, so you've done the 100k, but then let's you've gone further and further. So you've done at least 200 milers that I know of. The CCC out in the Alps, which is a mountainous 100k. I'm not sure. I can't remember off the top of my head what the elevation is on that one.
6,000. What is it? 6,000 meters, I think. Something
Is
like
it?
100, something like that. Yeah.
I
Yes,
should know
about
because I'm meant to be doing it.
9,000 feet.
Okay.
Yeah, quite lumpy.
Yeah, yeah. And the Pilgrims challenge as well. So
Yes, I did Pilgrims nearly a year ago now, actually.
was it?
Yeah, I was hoping to do it again this year. It's actually on my birthday. Well, it was meant to be on my birthday next year. This year even, which is next Saturday, but it's
Right.
yeah. So I did a few. So the 100 miles was probably like my next really big step. So after Race of Stones, the following year I did a couple of ultras. I did Race of the King, and then there's the Shires and Spires. It's like 35 miles. It's quite a local one
Okay.
to me. And then the following year I did 3. So one of which was the Race of Stones again, but in one go.
Yeah.
And then there's one I did later in the year, the Limestone Way up in the Peak District. That was
Oh
really
yeah.
nice. But the one that I was kind of the bridge was I did the wall, the Ratway. I can't speak tonight. The Rat Race Wall,
Oh yeah.
which is 69 miles. It's actually a road run.
Is it?
It kind of follows like the Hadrian's Way.
Yeah, I've seen it advertised. I didn't know it was road though.
Yeah. I mean, this is how poorly I researched it. I didn't realise it was road until 10 o'clock a day. So, well, no, that's a lie. About 2 weeks before, I realised, and I was like, oh god. And it was tough because it was a really hot day as well. It was in like June, and God, it was. I think it got up to about 29, 30 degrees.
Wow.
And, like the hottest part of the day. They ran out of water at one point.
No.
Had to get extra supplies in. So there was quite a high drop, like DNF that day, all heat related. I think nearly 50% of the fields DNF'd.
Crikey.
Like stroke, all sorts of weird stuff going on. But I'd already, before that, I'd said to my husband Richard that I was toying with wanting to do 100 miles, and my husband's really supportive of me.
Yeah.
Absolutely brilliant. He's crewed me on many races. And he's very honest as well. And he said to me, he was like, I just don't think you're ready for it. And he was like, why don't you do the wall, see how that goes, and because that will be then the furthest distance I've done in one go, and then call it from there. So I managed to finish it. I mean, it was a rough old day at the office, I have to say. Like, it was, aside from the heat, I mean, my feet were a mess.
Really?
Absolute
No.
mess. I couldn't walk for days. I've actually, like, when I do my talks, like I sort of tend to go to schools and do talks.
Oh yeah.
One of the slides I show is actually the state of my feet right at the end of the race, but actually a few days later they look even worse, because I basically had to have 2 holes drilled into my big toenail because it was really, it was,
oh my word.
yeah, it was bad. And I think that was largely just due to my lack of experience and probably lack of foot care.
Yeah.
And not probably doing enough about it soon enough.
It's hard though when you're racing as well, to your feet are always going to hurt over a long distance.
Yeah. That's the thing. I mean, it's hard to come out of these things completely unscathed. But I now know, like, as soon as I start feeling that little hot spot, I'm like, right, stick a plaster on it. And I've got quite a good care routine anyway, but I now know, like, not to nip it in the bud, not let it get to the point where you have to drill holes into your toenails.
No.
But yeah, anyway, at the end of that, I was like, right, I've got through it. It was really tough. That really tested me mentally and physically, and I just thought, I'm ready for the 100. So that was a drunken entry. Actually.
Which one was that?
So that was the West Country Ultra.
Okay.
So I think that was 2018, maybe 19.
Right.
And I did my friend Caroline. So we signed up and did that together.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that was an interesting event as well. So but again, not an easy day at the office.
No.
I don't know why we did things. Like when I recount these tales, I sort of go, why did I do this again? Like, but then you do have those amazing moments when you think.
It's crazy, isn't it? The number of times I think, what am I doing? And then you finish it, and then you're thinking about the next one within 24 hours. But
I know, it's a bit like childbirth, like straight after, oh my god, never again. It's like, right, it's time to the next one. But yeah, so that was tough. And actually, I haven't completed another 100 milers since. So I entered the A100, which you.
Oh yeah.
Did you podium finish on that? You did really well on that, didn't you?
Fifth overall.
Sixth.
Fifth. I think it was fifth.
Sorry.
I was really happy with that one actually, because I didn't know what to expect, and I started really slowly, but then just managed to finish quite strongly. So,
yeah. Every time I saw you, I mean, I would see you in a race because you'd be at the back and I'll be somewhere mid-pack, but because you'd be out backs, I got to see you a couple of times, and you were just so strong. That was a really bad day for me though, and it was one of those days when I woke up, and it sounds really, and it is really defeatist, but I woke up and I knew I wasn't going to finish it. Before I even got to the start line, I was just like, well, my head wasn't in it. So it was the same year as the CCC, and the CCC was like everything for me.
Yeah.
so hard in my life and trained so hard for a race, and it was all I lived and breathed for 6 months before, and that was like my A race. And but I'd also, so I'd actually got the ballot place for that after I'd entered A100. So I think probably if it'd been the other way around, I probably wouldn't have entered A100 that year.
No.
But it was the other way around. So I was like, well, I'm going to turn up and do it and give it a go at least. It was a horrible day though, isn't it? Like it was all that rain.
It was terrible.
Like all day.
Yeah, the weather was terrible. I don't think it stopped in, almost 24 hours of rain. It was.
Yeah.
It was not great.
Great, was it?
No.
And I picked up a bit of an injury earlier that year, which had caused me a few issues training for CCC, but I kind of managed it with a lot of physio and the right sort of body care. But coming out of CCC, my hip hadn't really settled.
Right.
And I tried to run 100 miles, and I got to about 63 miles, I think.
Yeah.
I started the third leg, and I finished my race on the out before turning back.
Okay.
And it was just like, yeah, it wasn't a great race for me.
No.
And ironically, my bib number was 100, so everyone kept saying to me, they kept going, oh, you're going to finish this. And in my head, I was like, no, I know I'm not. Someone else needs to race this bib, not me.
You could only go out there and give it your best shot. And I think, how many weeks? There's only about 5 weeks between the CCC and the Autumn 100, I think.
I can't remember when it was. Was it October?
Early October, so...
Yeah, so CCC was end of August.
Yeah, there's not long.
No, I definitely wasn't ready for it, and as I say, had I not entered it beforehand, I probably would, and I should have pulled the plug on it before I even turned up to the start line, but I pig-headed.
Well, you gave it a go.
Yeah, I gave it a shot. God loves a try, right?
Well,
So,
who knows? Well, I guess the worst thing that happens is you drop out, isn't it? And if you're okay with that mentally, then, it's not the end of the world, is it? Hopefully you've kind of...
Yeah. It was a good learning curve for me. It was one of those things that my pride took a bit of a hit for a couple of days, but then I tried to sort of take the positives out of these things, and I gave it a shot. I got quite far in.
Yeah.
But also it was the first time I DNF'd, and I just thought, next time, just be sensible. Don't enter a race that you're not going to finish. So. Yeah, lesson learnt there, but it was a good experience.
Yeah.
And I love the Serbian races; they're brilliant. So for that alone, it was there was something to take away from it.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, big respect for getting out there and giving it a go, especially so soon after the CCC. And I mean, how was the CCC? Because that's a totally different race, isn't it, compared to?
I've got so much love for that race. So once again, that was a drunk. I'm going to sound like such an alcoholic. I'm not. I'm a terrible puss. So I'll only ever enter these really big things. So basically, the CCC, I'd had my eye on all the UTMB week for a few years.
Yeah.
And it's one of those things you watch on TV and you just think, God, I will never be that level. I will never experience that, but it looks amazing. It's like a bucket list thing that you just think you're never going to get a chance to do.
Yeah.
Because in my mind, it was for the elite. And I'm just like a average mid-pack. I'm not your token mum runner. I'm nothing special.
Don't do yourself down.
But actually, when the ballot opened, and I noticed on my Instagram stories quite a few people, definitely friends who've got a mutual, had entered and put it on their stories, and I was like, oh, I've never even looked at my UTMB points to see what I've got.
Right.
So when I looked, I was like, oh, I actually qualified for this. I'd had about 3 gin and tonics at that point, and I was like, what are the chances? It's like a 1 in 3 chance of getting a space.
Yeah.
I was like, ballot entry, see what happens. And then sure enough, because he got a place tonight. And so I was like, no. But I was actually really excited when the ballot
That's
results
awesome.
came out. It was that thing of complete and utter fear.
Yeah.
But I was like, actually, it was the year that I turned 40, and I always wanted to do something big in my 40th year and hadn't planned anything yet. And my birthday's in February, and it was already January, so I didn't have a plan. So I was like, this is it. This was what I was meant to do at my 40th year. So I kind of embraced it like that, like it was kind of written in the stars. I gave it everything. I really did. I took it really seriously. I took it on a Mags.
Yeah.
Yeah, our mutual Salomon ambassador. She was fantastic. My issue is I had that hip injury that I mentioned earlier, so I couldn't kind of plan because I never knew on a certain day whether I wake up in pain or not. But she was absolutely brilliant throughout. I did it, and it's really hard. I live in Warwickshire, which is quite flat. So training for a mountain race, flat Warwickshire is not an easy
I share your
task.
pain. It's just flat
You're
round.
down south, aren't you? Where are you? You're Sussex.
East Anglia,
Anglia.
Suffolk. Yeah, so it's pretty flat around here, to be fair.
Yeah. So the stair climber in the gym became a good friend of mine.
Was it?
Yeah, it was like it was my frenemy. And I did a lot of stair climbing with a pack on. I went out with John, you know John Zinker, don't you?
Yeah.
We went out and did a recce of some of the routes about 5 or 6 weeks before.
So just for those that don't know, it starts in Courmayeur and then goes to Champay and then Chamonix. So it's basically the UTMB without the Chamonix to Courmayeur leg, isn't it?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So sorry, actually, I should explain what it is.
No, it's 100k, isn't it? The distance.
Yeah, it's 100k, 101 actually. And it's 6,000 metres and 5 mountain summits. So yeah, like I say, it starts in Italy, goes through Switzerland, finishes in France. So yeah, and I did, you know, I really kind of threw myself into it, and I was obsessive. It's all I thought about all the time. I went to a so you know X Energy, Neil Thurber puts on a really good oh god, what's it called? It's like a get your words out, Lauren. Basically like a training day, like a seminar.
Okay, like a workshop type thing.
Yeah, and so I went there for the day, and that was a really good day. And one of the things I took away from that was to put your like the race profile on your bathroom wall.
Right.
So every morning and night when I was brushing my teeth, I'd sit and study it. So I knew exactly where all the checkpoints were, at what elevation they were at, how far apart they were. So when it came, I mean, that's how obsessed I was. But it was good because when it came to race day, I knew what to expect.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, that was tough. The recce was the best thing I could have done, though. I think without the recce, I don't really know what would have happened on race day without the recce, but it really opened my eyes to the fact that although in my mind I've been training so hard for it and I've been putting in lots of miles, hitting that stair climber several times a week, it still wasn't enough.
Right.
What I hadn't trained for was just hiking, like just walking.
Yeah.
So much walking involved, like unless you're up at the front, like you can't really run those mountains, not up anyway. So I picked up a lot of you know, sort of hiking and walking.
Did you use poles?
I did, yes.
Yeah.
That was the other thing. So I went out there with some poles that I bought on eBay for £6. Realised they weren't very good. So I upgraded my poles, and so I did. And then race day came, and it was really good because we made like a whole week of it, a holiday. So my husband and our 2 children, we drove down, and then my mum, my dad, and my in-laws all flew out a few days before, so we had a really nice
nice
head of the race, and then race day, obviously they were all there popping up at different points, giving me a bit of a cheer. But I mean, that was just still, even now, like I wrote literally the lengthiest blog in the world after it, trying to kind of really encompass like the race and trying to put it into words. And still now, I don't think I've got the words to describe what it was to me.
Yeah.
I know a lot of people find UTMB really sort of commercialised, and it is. It's massive. There's a lot of money in it, and it's very crowded. That's probably my only kind of thing that I didn't like about it was just how busy that start line was. basically bottlenecks about a mile into the race, and it was
Okay.
basically minutes just waiting to go through a return stop. um, but other than that, it was just incredible. We really, the weather was beautiful that weekend. Really lucked out on the weather.
We saw you out
Yeah.
there, didn't we?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah.
To you in a very, very pregnant pip.
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
at the time.
yeah, that's right. So, yeah, it was a great experience, and I had so much that I took away from it that's really changed, like has genuinely sort of changed my outlook on the things that I'm capable of now.
Yeah.
And, you know, kind of finding that extra confidence that I didn't think I had in myself, that extra belief. You know, it's really tough. I can't even stress it how hard I found it. Despite all the training that I put in, I just hadn't really paid enough thought to just how steep the mountains are. And you know, I remember like in the night time, literally looking up and thinking it was stars I was seeing, and I realised, because it was so high up in the sky, and I suddenly realised those were people with their torches on, and that's where I was trying to get to.
No way.
And that happened 3 times in the night, 3 different mountains. And the first time I was like, oh God, just don't look up, like don't look up. I had a bit of like a quite sizable wobble actually between the 3rd and 4th peaks. I can't really remember. I've actually got a profile here, Logiet and Le Sep.
Right.
I've had a bit of a wobble there.
What keeps you going when the you know, when you have a wobble?
It's going to sound really cliche, possibly a little bit cheesy, but genuinely, when things get really tough for me, I literally just visualise my children, and not what, you know, it's so important to me that I'm such a strong role model for them. And I know I can be quite extreme in the way perhaps I sort of demonstrate that sometimes, but I want them to know that anything is possible, and no matter how hard or how much he's willing, can get it done. And so that becomes very much a focus.
Yeah.
I use quite a lot of, like I say, like visualization and sort of like mantras, and so I've got one that I always sort of say to myself, which is like strength, courage, spirit, you've got this.
Yeah.
And I kind of just repeat that in my head, and you know, I'm definitely strong, like my body's strong, you know, everything's intact, I can keep going. You know, if your spirit starts to break a little bit, sometimes that's the thing that can stop your race. You know, sometimes it's your head that takes over rather than your body.
Yeah.
But yeah, and I have this is like another level of cheesy, but so there's a song that I always sang to them when they were a baby, even like before they were born, like when they were still, when I was still pregnant, and it's a song by Joni Mitchell called Little Green. And that was just like their bedtime song that I've sang hundreds of times over the years. But it's a really, like, to me, like, that really symbolises like a really special moment at the end of a tough day. You know, no matter how rough a day we've all had, how much we've shouted at each other and all had tantrums, like that very peaceful moment at the end of the day when we're all together and like all is forgiven. That song is associated. That, you know, that the association there for me with that song. So many times, even from Race to Stones, like for that very first ultra marathon for me, like when I'm just thinking, I'm absolutely shattered, I can't go on, everything hurts, I start singing that song, or I'll play it, you know, if I've got my headphones on, but I'll sing it, and it takes me into a place where I know I can just get through it if I just kind of keep that focus.
Yeah, that's so interesting. I'm always intrigued by, you know, how people get through those tough situations, and everyone's kind of got their own ways of getting through it. But yeah, I love that you've got that you know, that kind of song and the mantras and
yeah, it's quite special. But it's like my last resort. Like I keep that for really bad places.
Yeah. Yeah.
Normally I just love, you can't beat a nice cup of sugary tea and a red crisp at the end of a race. So that's the thing I look forward to. That's normally my drive.
Nice. I'm conscious of taking up all your time this evening. We could go on for ages, but I want to get into quickly your last year of training, because you were training really hard for a big event that got postponed twice and now three times, I think. And like, obviously, last year for everyone was a bit of a write-off. And then I'll tell you where this is going, to get into your kind of crazy challenge week towards the end of last year. I'm quite intrigued to hear a bit about that. So, yeah, how did you stay motivated last year? And
Oh, goodness. So the Marathon des Sables was, I was all signed up and ready to go last April. I'd taken a charity place with Hope for Children, and I had to raise £8,000, which I did. The majority of it in one night I put on a charity ball, and we raised £7,000 that
wow,
night, which I was really pleased with.
Yeah, that's huge.
So it's hard right kind of getting to the point, and then of course the training itself. So last April, and then of course the pandemic hit, and about 4 or 5 weeks before we were due to fly out to Morocco, they pulled the plug on it, and I'd literally just put in my peak training week. So my husband was away on business, so I was at home alone with the children. So while they were at school, and in between my client appointments, I did a marathon on the Monday, and then I went back out and did 20 miles on the Tuesday, and then another 10 on the Wednesday. And to add to that, my children, each of them completely separately, were ill on 2 separate days of that as well.
No.
So against all odds, I was like, yes, please, I've made it to like the end of training for the Marathon des Sables. I literally had my bags packed, I was ready to go. And we had an email from the organisers on like the Thursday of that week to say, we're aware there's a pandemic, but it's, we're putting everything in place, we're taking extra precautions and medical care, all the rest of it. And then literally a U-turn, like less than 48 hours after that, they said it's off, and we don't know when it's going to happen. They sort of said September. And I literally just felt like someone just like knocked like the earth from under my feet. Like I took it really badly, actually.
Yeah.
Which I'm really ashamed of, actually. Like, given we're in a pandemic and there's much worse things going on than having a race cancelled. But I just invested so much into it, and it was just really disappointing. But anyway, so September came and went. Didn't happen then either. And then of course the Centurion running put on a couple of these one love weeks last year.
Yeah.
So I did the one in May, did 100 miles over 5 days, and then when was it, the end of November, wasn't it, the last one?
I think so. I didn't do it because I felt I'd done too much already, and I needed a break. It was around that time though, for sure.
Yeah, because you were training for the South Downs 100, weren't you?
Yeah,
Plus you had a couple of others.
Yeah, like the November lockdown came in literally just 3 days before that was meant to happen. Yeah, so I trained really hard for that, and after that I was like, I can't do any more crazy challenges or anything. I'm done.
It's like it's so like literally in that second when you find out your race is cancelled, like you just mojo just disappears.
Yeah.
My friend John, who actually I was meant to be crewing for the South Downs, where he was doing Marathon des Sables and the South Downs 100, and both got cancelled.
Oh no.
He was just gutted, but so then my friend Helen, who I do a lot of running with, messaged me one night saying they're doing it again. Fancy doing the Grand Slam, like all 7 distances, so the 5k, the 10k, the half marathon, full marathon. 50k and then 100 miles. I think, is that right? Am I missing one? I'm sure there's 7 distances. 50k and then 50 miles and then 100 miles.
Yeah, that's right.
They've now added the 100k. So she messaged me saying, do you fancy doing all 7? And I was like, no. Why? That's ridiculous. And then sure enough, 2 days later I was like, so I'm so easily influenced. So we did that we did a lot of that together. So that was a crazy week.
So that's it's a total of 230 miles, is it?
230 miles.
Yeah.
Yeah, you have to do each distance individually for it to count. So a lot of people initially were like, oh, well, you can roll in some of the distances into the 100. And I was like, no, it's all different. Like, it's all different. So I took a little bit of time off work. I still had to do a little bit of work with clients and teaching my classes, but I sort of scaled down work a little bit that week. So we set off on the Monday and did, I can't remember the distances now. So the Monday we did the 50k and the 10k.
Yeah.
So that didn't
all in one day.
Yeah, it's like 37 miles.
Nice.
Or something. And then Tuesday was so that was a half marathon followed by a full marathon day. And then the Wednesday was 50 miles all in one go. And things took a bit of a bad turn at this point because we'd already had best part of 80 miles in our legs.
Yeah.
And decided to drive down to Henley in Arden.
Oh yeah, I know.
Only about 20 minutes away from where I live. And do the Heart of England marathon route. It was so muddy though. So it took us 2.5 hours to do 7 miles. And
really?
We were absolutely shattered already because we'd done best part of 80 miles in 2 days.
Oh my word.
We've both got children and households to look after. Plus it was just a particularly miserable day. Like I remember putting the children on the school bus that morning. It was torrential and I was just like, I've never wanted to do anything less.
No.
Right now, I run 50 miles in this.
Just want to have a cup of tea and put my feet up.
It was awful. It was literally just like the worst day. But we, Helen's really good to run with because she's very tunnel vision. She gets something in her head. She'll just, no matter what, she'll just keep plugging at it. She's very consistent. And I just thought, you know what, I just need to take that attitude as well.
Yeah.
And we always have a laugh together anyway. It's always a bit of an adventure running together. So we basically took hours, and we hadn't, because we'd only, but in the grand scale of things, we were planning to do a marathon. We were planning to do the route twice. That's what we were planning to do. So in our head, we were like, okay, so we'll probably do the marathon in about 5 or 6 hours, like in mud and on tired legs. So we'd only really take enough snacks and water for that time, and then we left a load in the cars to refuel. And basically it was 8 hours just to do 30 miles. And at which point we'd run out of food, we're getting quite low on water. It was it was dark at this point. We still had 20 miles to go. We were absolutely shattered, completely over the whole challenge. I was like, I'm never doing this again. This is just So we made the call to actually drive back to Warwick and do the rest on roads and just do it on routes around the town that we knew. So at 7 o'clock, we having set off at 9 o'clock that morning. We still had 20 miles to go, so we ran until about I think it was about 20 to 1 in the morning that we finished.
Oh, no way.
Having started at 9 o'clock, about half 9 in the morning. Oh God, it was awful. So yeah, that was a tough day. And then I did 5k, just did a 5k walk on the Thursday, like a recovery. Friday, I had off altogether.
Right.
Which left 100 miles, which I decided I wanted to attempt in one go. So my friend John, he also wanted to, because he was meant to be doing the South Downs 100, so it suited him to try and, he trained for it, so I hadn't got his race. So we set off together, and unfortunately by this point niggles were setting in, my knee wasn't great. I've got arthritis in my left foot as well, which causes me a lot of trouble.
Right.
That was very inflamed after having done 130 miles before even attempting the 100.
Yeah.
I wanted to get 70 miles in, and I was just, the pain was just that little bit too much for me to bear, and I was, at this point we still had Marathon Desert to think about, so I just it wasn't important enough to me to break myself over it. So unfortunately I had to pull the plug at 70 miles. So 200 miles I got in the end, or did in the end, up to 230, which I was really pleased with under the circumstances.
Yeah, massively. That's a huge week.
It was a crazy week.
I've never, I think the most I've done is, just over 100 in a week, so, or like 130.
That's a lot as well though, isn't it? I find like 60-mile weeks that's a lot for me.
Yeah. Is that your kind of usual, what's your usual sort of mileage?
probably somewhere between like 14, 45-ish miles in a week.
Yeah.
Like a week I've not, I don't think I even scraped. I think I did 20 today, as in 20 in total. Today, not yeah, about that. And then obviously depending where I am, if I'm on a plan, like it can creep up. Like with the Saab, about 65-mile week.
Yeah.
Sometimes.
So 200's huge. And then
actually, it was done over 4 days when you kind of think about so we actually only that was 4 running days.
That's true, actually.
About 4.5. So yeah, so I'm really pleased to have done it. You know, so I didn't think I'd be able to do it. Like when Helen first sent that text saying let's do the slam, I was like, okay, I'll do that. But I'll give it a go just for fun.
I think I think those virtual challenges have, you know, they've become a good source of motivation for people. I did a few last year, including I entered. I think it was the Lakeland 100, and they did like a virtual week, so 100 miles in a week, same as Centurion. If you're doing 100, and I actually got the wrong week. So I went into the Monday just, you know, doing my usual thing, and then suddenly realised what the date was and had to kind of ram 100 miles into this week, because I'd actually kind of figured that I thought it was the next week where I had a load more time on my hands.
You were like tapering.
Yes. I got there in the end.
Did you do it?
Yeah, I got there. It took right through to the Sunday, that one, but yeah, I managed it. They're good fun though.
It's a bit of a focus, isn't it? I think, you know, last year so many people trained for all their races and then all got cancelled, so I think people were sort of really chomping at the bit to use their training.
Exactly.
It's a big investment, you know, like training for any race really, whether it's your first 10k or the Marathon des Sables, you know, it's you invest money into the race, you know, time away from family, energy, you know, for it to be sort of taken away from underneath your feet at the very last minute is pretty soul destroying.
Yeah, definitely. So what's the focus for this year, MDS?
So MDS has once again been postponed. We found out last week.
Yeah, I heard.
Yeah, it's no surprise. I really wasn't surprised at all.
No.
I would have been more surprised actually we'd gone ahead, I think.
Yeah.
And for all the right reasons. And to be honest, I was a bit relieved because obviously in this lockdown, you know, we're homeschooling the kids. My husband still goes to the office for work, so I can't get out during the day. Training's just been really difficult, so I was quite relieved to just have the pressure taken off, and I'd much rather be able to train for it properly. So at the moment they put it back to October, so everything crossed that it will actually happen.
Okay.
So in the meantime, I've got had a very kind invitation for the Ultra X World Championships in Slovenia.
Oh yeah, wow.
June, yeah. So I've accepted that invitation. Haven't booked any flights or anything yet, just because obviously not really knowing what's going to go ahead. But actually put an email today from them to say, as far as they're concerned, at the moment they're hoping that it's going to go ahead. So.
Oh, awesome.
So I need to get my backside in gear for that one now. Actually, so that's in June. So that's another mountain race, and it's basically, I can't remember the distances, but it's very similar to Marathon des Sables.
Okay.
The difference being that even though it's self-sufficient, you don't have to carry your stuff with you during the week, so they transfer it at the beginning of each day to like the race village. So I think I'd like to give that a shot actually.
Yeah, no, that sounds.
I don't know why they liked me though. Like I was telling my friend the other day, have you ever seen, have you ever watched the Barclay Marathon?
Oh yeah.
You know how like every year Lazarus Lake always invites that one person in his race because they've got no business being there.
The sacrificial lamb.
Yeah, I'm gonna be like the token mum. Like someone's got to come out the bag, right?
I'm sure it's not because of that. Check out all the awesome stuff that you've done.
No, it's good fun. I do love it. I really love it. I can't now imagine sort of life without ultra marathons really.
No, they're good. They keep you going.
I can't wait for races to go back on and we can get back out there again. I miss the interaction with people.
Yeah, it's good. I mean, I think the fact that they just become like a massive adventure, and the fact, like when you did the CCC, your whole family get involved, and you know you're out in a cool place, and um,
Yeah.
I there's something about them like that. So
It's
uh,
such a great way to, yeah, I mean, that's the CCC is the only race I've done abroad, but it gave me a real taste of wanting to do more in different countries, but also because we were able to make a family holiday of it. Like my husband's totally sold on it. So
yeah,
like, I can race around the world and we'll disguise it as family holiday.
yeah. Sounds like a good plan. Cool, Lauren. I won't take up any more of your Saturday evening, but thanks so much for your time and talking to us about
Thank you so much for asking me.
all the awesome stuff that you've been doing. Where where's the best place to find you on Instagram? Is it?
I'm Lauren Gregory _PT. That's where you can find all my sort of running adventures and a bit of work stuff on there as well. And then on Facebook, I'm Lauren Gregory Fitness Coach. So that's my business page on there.
Cool.
Yeah, I'm a big user of Instagram, so it'll be the best place to find me.
Awesome. We'll share those around too. But yeah, enjoy the rest of your Saturday, and yeah, enjoy.
It's been great. I've enjoyed it.
Awesome. Thanks very much, Lauren, and yeah, enjoy the rest of running during lockdown, and
Yeah, you too. Yeah. What's next for you, Tom? What's your?
nothing. I've got the Lakeland 100 in July, which hopefully will go ahead. It's a smaller one, so we'll see.
Yeah.
And then I was meant to do a 50k last weekend, the Hurtwood 50,
Yes.
and that's hopefully going ahead in April. But well, who who knows?
Don't know what's happening next week yet.
No, exactly. So yeah, that's all. I'm a bit reluctant to sign up for too many things at the moment, but
That's it, isn't it? It's,
I'll try and make my mind up.
motivated, you know. One day we'll all be back on the start line all together.
I know. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah.
Cool.
So much for having me on.
No worries. Thanks, Lauren. We'll see you soon.
All right then. Thanks, Tom. Bye.
Cheers, and we'll be back here next week on trail runs.